In my last pool video, I got 41,000 views, but I made one mistake. And I'm gonna tell you about the mistake I made, and I'll show you whether or not my pool is still clear a few weeks later. So come check it out. Let's get to the video. At the end of this video, I'm gonna talk about free chlorine versus total chlorine and when to shock your pool. But first, a couple things. This pool has been sitting for about a week without being touched. The filter's been running because I need the skimmer working. Okay, the pool is still crystal clear. Now, in my previous video, I screwed up a couple times by saying increasing pH is increasing acidity. I know better. I was a science major in college. I always flip it in my brain. I misspeak, so feel free to keep correcting me. I know that when you need more alkalinity, you need to raise your pH. When you need more acidity, you need to lower it. Okay, so a few things out of the way. So now that this pool has been sitting, let me change the camera view. So this pool's been sitting for a while and running and being used. You can see it's still very crystal clear. It needs a good vacuum though. So I'm gonna show you a few things that I do to maintain my pool once a week. It doesn't take that much time and it gets everything nice and clean. Okay, so I'm gonna vacuum. I'm just using the garden hose vacuum right now. I don't have much sand. I just have large debris. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna vacuum this pool from all the debris. Even though I run the skimmer, some of the pine needles still get through. So first step, vacuum my pool with this hose vacuum. Now, I did have a previous video on how to get the sand off the bottom of your pool. That involves jerry-rigging this vacuum head with a hose and using your filter pump, and I'll put that link down in the description. Now you can see the bag is about a quarter way full of pine needles. I got that all done, and now I'm gonna go spray the sides of my pool with the filter on. Filter's on, skimmer's skimming, and I'm just gonna spray the sides of my pool off. I'm gonna get the rest of those needles floating, and I'm gonna get them into the skimmer and clean the skimmer out. Now I'm also gonna put the net on my pool. All right, so the sides are clean. Let me go get the net. All right, and just use the net to skim some of those pine needles off that we sprayed. The pool bottom is clear. There's still a few pine needles, but I'm filming one-handed. So I'm gonna let those get caught up in the skimmer. But yeah, look, the bottom is now vacuumed and the pool water is still crystal clear after all these weeks. Imagine that. The other thing I do for my weekly maintenance is I check the pressure gauge. My pressure gauge is still in the green. So I'm not gonna do anything to my pump. I don't backwash and flush my pump until it's just about into the yellow. Once it hits that, I do a backwash, and then I rinse, and then I do a backwash again, and then I rinse, and do it a few times until the water coming out is clear. The next thing I wanna do is test the chemistry of my pool. The main thing I'm looking at is free chlorine, total chlorine, and pH. Those are the things that are most variable. Now, I had a few comments saying, hey, you should also test cyanuric acid because that helps keep your chlorine in your pool longer. Well, those pool tablets I told you about from BioGuard, they have that built into it, and I hardly ever test for cyanuric acid. All I know is my chemistry or my chlorine stays pretty level throughout the week. So yes, I'm a novice. I'm not a pro. I'm not a pool pro. I'm just a guy with a backyard Intex pool. I do what works for me. So now we're just gonna test. And we'll bring it over here. Looks like my pH is a little too low at 6.8. So it's a little too acidic. Alkalinity is okay. My free chlorine is 3 and my total chlorine is 3. Now, I'm gonna have to raise the pH of my pool. Since my pH is too low and a little too acidic, but my alkalinity is fine, I'm gonna start the aerator. All right, this aerator forces a lot of the CO2 out of your water. CO2 in the water makes water more acidic. So this should bring up the pH a little bit, but my alkalinity is also on the lower end, so I'm gonna have to add some baking soda. The next time I go to Costco, I'm gonna get a big 13-pound bag and I'll add baking soda. I'll use ChatGPT and I'll tell it my pH and how many gallons my pool is, and I'll ask it how many pounds of baking soda I'm gonna put in there. Again, I'm not using the BioSilk stuff or the BioGuard stuff from the pool store that's like 50 bucks for a 10-pound bag. I'm gonna use the good old Arm & Hammer baking soda. But this, I'll bet you, will bring up the pH just a little bit. So in my case, my total chlorine and free chlorine are both 3 ppm. Now, when you want to shock your pool is when there's more total chlorine than free chlorine, or what they call combined chlorine. Combined chlorine equals total chlorine minus free chlorine. And if the total chlorine is greater than free chlorine, you'll get a number above 0. And once the number above 0 is 0.5 parts per million or greater, you want to shock your pool. So right now, my combined chlorine is 0. What free chlorine means is the chlorine is free to react with organic matter. And once the chlorine reacts or kind of oxidizes the organic matter and sanitizes your pool, whether it's killing bacteria or algae, then it is no longer free chlorine. When you shock your pool, you're supercharging your chlorine and you're freeing those chlorine molecules back to react again. So total chlorine and free chlorine are 2 different things, and you want to make sure they're both the same level and they're both, 2 to 3 or 4 ppm. Now, if there's a bunch of algae and stuff in your pool and your combined chlorine still equals 0, I would shock the hell out of it and run your filter for 24/7 for a few days. Also, if you've already shocked your pool and it's cloudy, I have another video showing you how to get rid of that cloudiness. You've shocked your pool, it's sanitary, all the algae's dead, but man, it's still cloudy. Click on the other video below to see that. So there it is, a few weeks later, the pool is still crystal clear. I'm on cruise control now, just maintaining it once a week with those few simple things. I hope you're enjoying your summer in your backyard pool. Please like and subscribe. It's been really cool sharing my knowledge with you. Yes, I'm not a pool expert, but I've learned a lot along the way, and I'd like to share it with you to help you get your pool clean. All right, take care. Bye-bye.